floor lights up the entrance to a Texas mansion. And a porch under wraps is restored by homeowners in a Boston suburb. When Restore America returns. Welcome back to Restore America. San Antonio, Texas was founded by the Spanish in 1718 and later became part of Mexico. It wasn't until 1846 that it was joined to the United States. It was also around that time that one of San Antonio's oldest neighborhoods was developed, the King William District. It would soon become populated with grand homes built by and for the city's elite. But a century later, suburban flight set in, causing some homes in the neighborhood to be abandoned. That seemed like the end of the story for one home until history was rewritten, or actually restored. It was called the Wolf Home, a Victorian structure built for prominent San Antonio merchant Abraham Wolf in 1891. It was only one of many fine homes which lined the streets of the King William District. But a century later, the Wolf home presented a far different picture. With the Wolf family long gone, it was now the unofficial property of vandals and vagrants in search of shelter. Then Kathleen and Ralph Labordi happened by one day in 1991, and for the first time in a long time, there seemed to be hope for the lost home.
We sort of feel like we belong in this house. It was because it had been boarded up so long, kind of waiting for someone to move into it.
The only question was, were they up to restoring this one?
Anybody in their right minds would not have bought it. I mean, we heard after that a lot of people had looked at the house, but it just looked like too much work.
The electrical and plumbing in the house were seriously outdated. Floors and stairways were dangerously close to falling down. The interior was filled knee-deep with trash, and the exterior had been modernized with stucco. While Ralph and Kathleen immediately saw the potential in the home, they still had to convince the rest of the family that it was worth restoring. Kathleen's 8-year-old son, Jacob, was skeptical.
It was just the nastiest house he had ever seen in his life. When we came in and showed it to him, we walked out to the front yard and he said, "Okay, here's the deal. For the rest of my life, you never have to give me an allowance. Let's just not buy this house." So, well, it's too late. We've already bought it.
In May of 1993, the Labordis closed on the house. They cleaned it thoroughly and moved in before any restoration had taken place. Soon after the Labordis moved in, Ralph was treated to a gift of his own. He had suspected that hiding beneath the stucco were the Victorian origins of the house.
You could tell it was a Victorian house at one time, except that what they'd done at the porches was made them look like they would have in the 20s when they were building new houses in San Antonio, which is more Mediterranean style. So we started poking around. We said, there's something behind there. I got the stepladder out and just started poking a hole very carefully. I started with a little 3/8 hole and a little tiny flashlight, dropped it in and started looking around. When I started seeing that all the original woodwork was still under there, columns and the lattice and everything, well, I went and got a bigger hammer and just started beating on the side of the house and ended up with a nice, good-sized hole.
Over the next month, Ralph and a neighbor completely uncovered the original porch, and then, along with a crew of subcontractors, began restoring the rest of the house. Inside, all the plumbing and electrical were replaced, along with most of the original parquet floors.
We had to replace the parquet in the front hallway because it was damaged by water. And you'll see that the artist came up with a new design using the same kind of wood and trying to get the same sort of feel with the starburst idea. It goes very well with the other floors, but then also gives us a feeling for some of the more modern things that, because we are living in a different time now.
And the reason, of course, the floors were replaced in this room was because of water damage. And you can still see some places on the floor where there's black water marks from where the floor was damaged. And what he did is he just sanded them and coated them again. And it's kind of a reminder of what the floors looked like when we first moved in.
Meanwhile, the outside of the house had gone through a dramatic change. By 1997, all of the stucco from the exterior had been chipped away, exposing the original brick facade. Some of the old stucco was intentionally left around one window. That, along with other signatures from the past, remains as a constant reminder of just how many people once called this house a home. Some may question the idea of leaving such mementos, but not the Labordis.
This house has a history and a character of its own, and everybody who lives in it is going to have an effect on the feeling of the house. And so you want to keep that. You want to be reminded that this space has sheltered a lot of lives, and it adds a certain richness to the fact that it's now sheltering yours and your children's.
Vagrants no longer seek shelter in the old Wolf home. They've been replaced with friends who congregate in what is now commonly called the Labordi house. And so one more chapter in the history of San Antonio is written, this time authored by a family who dared to look deep enough between the lines of this old home to find its true beauty hiding just inside.